Hello everyone. U.S. history students, your teachers may be out next week due to Keystone testing. Mrs. Whitmore, Mrs. Force, and Mrs. Thomas will all be out on May 13th, May 14th, and May 15th. This particular recording is intended for May the 13th, and it will go over what you guys will be doing independently today. You guys are in Unit 6 of the U.S. History course, and today's lesson is in Unit 6, Towards a New Millennium, Lesson 2, Reaganomics. You will be using this recording to guide you through the lesson. Textbook pages 898 to 903 are what you will be focusing on in the textbook, as well as the lesson slides. You do have a checkpoint activity as your graded assignment for today. Let's take a look at the assignment by going into your course to Unit 6. Clicking on Unit 6 will expand and bring you to your Unit 6 lesson 602, Reaganomics. The focus of this lesson is taking a look at President Ronald Reagan's economic policies, or his goals. The goals for the lessons are to explain the theory of supply-side economics and the arguments for and against it. Supply-side economics is a particular economic strategy that Reagan used. The second goal is to analyze the economic outcomes of Reagan's budget plan. So what happened as a result of the way that Reagan spent money while in office, or the way that he organized the government spending. The third goal is to recognize Sandra Day O'Connor as the first woman to become a Supreme Court justice. Within your lesson slides on the second page, it will tell you what textbook pages you need to read. There is a reading guide for this lesson right here on the third slide. You need to make sure that you're printing these off or using them as a file on your computer to complete to guide you through the lesson and make sure that you're understanding key information that will be asked of you, not only on the checkpoint for this lesson, but on the upcoming quiz that's going to go along with quiz 605. Make sure that you're completing that reading guide as you go along and read for your lesson. There is also an online activity and an activity sheet, the Sandra Day O'Connor sheet, that you can complete. This one is not graded, okay, but you can complete this and submit it as a reading guide for extra credit. In each unit, you can submit 2 reading guides and get extra credit for that unit. The only graded assignment that you have for this lesson is to complete the checkpoint that goes with the lesson. You'll always find your checkpoint right under the lesson itself. All right here you can find the Sandra Day O'Connor sheet. All right, and the student guide that walks you through what you need to do. Your lesson, this is the teacher version, your lesson will not have the answer key. A lot of the additional slides in the lesson, as far as in the online lesson, will have to do with the Supreme Court. They're going to explain to you how some of the day-to-day operations go about in the Supreme Court, including some of the terms that they use to announce that the court is in session. And it gives you a history of those medieval times calls and how the court still uses the medieval terminology for hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. They will also go into the choice of Sandra Day O'Connor by Ronald Reagan to join the court in 1981. She was the first woman to do so, to become a Supreme Court justice. And it will talk about her path from childhood all the way up to the court within these slides, and how she became a Supreme Court justice. She was a moderate justice, meaning she was tended to be more liberal, but would sometimes vote in a conservative manner. It will also talk about other firsts of the Supreme Court in history. Okay, so other firsts, like Thurgood Marshall being appointed by Lyndon Johnson. He was the first African American on the Supreme Court. It also talks about what presidents are looking for when they put a justice up for nomination. A president will choose a judge, and then the Senate has to take a look at that candidate and approve that choice for the court. They can either be more conservative or liberal. It depends on what the president's views are and policies are. It also talks a little bit about the court's architecture, rather, and how it's inspired by classical design. so you can click on this portion of the court to learn about its architecture. And it does remind you at the end to check the checkpoint. Okay, so before we get to the checkpoint, we know that you have to start by reading the lesson slides. After you go through what you've read here, you have to read the lesson slides within the book. So we're going to bring the textbook up here. And it starts on page 898, and we go to page 903. You should have your reading guide open, and while you're going through these pages, you should be looking for the answers that you need to find.